Mark Piatelli, welcome to the Laughter Channel, where human interest meets human interest. I think I said to you before the program, this is actually not a comedy show, but it's an exploration. And as I'm interviewing people, I'm really seeing where our humanity fringes and perhaps spins off from our capacity for humour. There's that great interface, and there's not a lot of written work or research in that particular area. So I really wanted to use these interviews to explore that thing. And my mission in doing so is, you know, to restore some humour and joy to the workplace and to people's lives, to reconnect people to what it means to be good-humoured and to be a human being. And to really help people express more authentically. And I think we can do that. I believe we can do that through our capacity to be good-humoured. And for me, to be good-humoured is about being appropriately responsive or not. And that requires a fine listening, which I know you will understand. You've got a long background in the performing arts, acting, coaching, and participating in a lot of theatre. Just tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, yeah, I started out as a kid. Literally, I was 10 years old and I opened my mouth and I discovered I could sing. And so they put me into the lead role of Oliver. And that was the beginning of my demise, if it were, because I became an actor, which is a great thing. Not because I loved acting so much, but because acting really taught me about being a human and what it means to be emotionally intelligent, truthful, and more importantly, what you were just talking about, listening. It really trained me on listening. And on a deeper level, it trained me on how to appropriately respond in the moment to stimuli or stimulation, you know.
Yeah.
So that was my training. And I studied in New York. I then got a master's in California at Cal State Long Beach. I went on to teach. I continued to teach a little bit. I started writing plays. I had a couple full lengths produced out here. Started directing, and found all of those experiences very satisfying for different reasons. Not enough time to go into all of them, but for me, what I learned, and you were talking about being more authentic, everybody being authentic. The role of actor in the business is very disempowered in many ways, because you are at the mercy of others to put you into their shows or productions. So if you want to sort of empower yourself to do what you love to do, you have to create those opportunities. It's true as a playwright as well. As a playwright, you're told to go find a theater that will put your stuff on, you know, become a member of a theater company and then get your plays produced, and that's what I did. So finding ways to bring my creative abilities into action through my own doing, if you will. Not always a lot of money in that, the theater, but certainly great development of self through that pursuit, through all of those different roles.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
In a nutshell.
I know I've enjoyed over the years a lot that you've shared with me around as a speaker. I interviewed you, I think, a couple of times for my transformational speaker program, and we talked a lot about being able to, you know, develop and express that charisma that is you, and to own the stage. I think we talked about that quite a lot.
Right.
And then to be able to use the stage. And for me, you know, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've really seen how that can be the stage, no matter where we are. It doesn't have to be a live performance per se. It's
Absolutely.
about creating the set in your life, you know. My room here, my office is full of a lot of my art, which is all about my connection with humanity. So it's like perfectly expressing the essence of who I am. And people come in and they're like, oh my.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they get a sense of. So, you know, building your set has been, you know, one of the big gifts that I think I've got from speaking with you over the years.
Huh.
So we've laughed a lot when we've talked in the past. How would you describe your sense of humour?
I'm kind of silly. Um, I laugh easily.
Yes.
I find humor in a lot of things. The older I get, the more absurd the world seems to me. We are animals basically, and we are trying to fit that animal sort of self into a civil kind of world. And we all try to tame those parts of us that are unacceptable in society, if you will. And it's that sort of juggling act, I think, that is really hysterical to me in many ways. Also, my sense of humor, I think, for a while, um, until I was about 30, 35, I was very guarded for reasons. And until I learned to have a sense of humor about myself and didn't take myself so seriously, I was very good at suffering and, you know, have sort of wet blanket of heaviness of, oh, woe is me. This, you know, the suffering actor, if you will, struggling actor kind of thing. And I really carried that like a trophy. And so it hindered my ability to, my lack of ability to laugh at myself kept me often from being able to laugh at others, other situations as well.
Mm.
But I'm pretty silly deep down, and sometimes body. I can also have a body sense of humor. You know, watch. I can't believe I'm going to share this. When I was a kid, my parents were quite, they had 6 kids, Italian Catholic, very robust in their sort of passion for life and sexual energy between them. They were very passionate. And their friends were all this way too. And their birthday cards were always infused with sort of some sexual innuendo. So I grew up in this environment where that was, I picked up on some of that, and it's continued a little bit. Not, you know, I don't lead with that, but I can get body, especially in the workplace. I work in a warehouse.
Yes.
I'm a manager, and I'm also the token gay person in the warehouse. And what I've discovered is that the culture there, they have this sort of secret little thing where they go around physically doing homoerotic things to each other all day. And they were concerned that I was coming in and they wouldn't be able to do that with each other, if that makes sense. And so I don't take myself too seriously. I just sort of, I laugh. I think it's funny. I think it's charming. I think it's, and when appropriate, I will play the game a little bit to just be part of the culture, if you will, without being a stick in the mud.
Yes.
You know, it's finding the, it's finding the balance. You know, it's finding the balance.
Yeah, and I think that's very clever. You know, the how do we know when to advance and when to retreat? And it's like a good tennis match. And for me, that's not about winning per se, but it's about getting the action and the, you know, the movement across the net and the backward and the forward.
That's right.
And in flow and reaching and kind of going to extremes, but also balancing and then recovering it. It's a wonderful dance. I just love that. watching a good tennis match.
Yeah. I guess for me, the where it can go off track is if it's mean-spirited, obviously. And because people can say what might be offensive to someone else because of a word but to me, that's, if it's done in the sense of play and they haven't been educated, or they haven't the context of why or something is so, could be strewn as really offensive, then for me, I can take a moment to laugh and then say, you know, you might think about this in a different way or whatever, so that there are opportunities for educating.
Yeah.
But there are also moments where it can be mean-spirited. In those moments, I'm pretty good at directly addressing it. There's actually something the other day at work where somebody said something jokingly, and I said, that was mean. And he said, yeah, you know what, it was mean. And so it's learning, you know, and to be able to also speak up. And I think I think in one of the questions you were asking about trust before.
Yes, yes.
And I think that really speaks to a critical tool to getting along and to having this dialogue where we're not, you know, right or wrong, good or bad. We all make mistakes. We all have our flaws. Let's not take ourselves so seriously. As long as we're in that mode, then we can move somewhere together.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for me, that combination of authentic expression, so, you know, saying what's there for you, and being able to, having already formed a high trust environment,
yeah,
then the use of humour can dissolve things, it can blow things apart, and that can be useful sometimes. You know, it takes you right off track, and then it doesn't matter because you've got that spontaneous, hilarious outburst, and we're done, you know.
Yeah.
But the whole essence of being good-humoured and that appropriate response or not. On the, I don't know if I've ever shared with you, but on the tour with Patch Adams, we were sitting together on the bus, and one day he said, so he was telling me about his mother, who was a diabetic, and she'd had one limb removed as a result of poor circulation, and he was there as she came out of the anaesthetic, and her eyelids are fluttering, and he's sitting beside her and he's patting her hand, and as her eyes opened, he leaned in, and in his big booming voice he said, well, Ma, now you know what it's like to have one foot in the grave. So only Patch in that moment could have said that to his mother.
Yeah.
You know? So it's all about relationship,
right,
and, you know, level of trust.
right.
It could work sometimes in other situations, but you've got to measure and know, can I do this or not?
Yes.
Like, I remember once kissing the head of a bald pharmacist when I was delivering a keynote, about 2,000 pharmacists in the room, and this man's very polished, shiny head was just begging. And I freshly applied lipstick. And so I did, and it was hilarious. They laughed for 5 minutes. I had to wait
right.
for them to come back in.
That's awesome.
Yes. But you've got to be able to, is that knowing, you know, really trusting your intuition.
And something about him, he was able to go with it and not find it embarrassing.
Yeah.
And if he had found it embarrassing, perhaps it might have been a different, I don't know. I wasn't there, but that's something to consider. Well,
I was coming from behind him, so he was on one level unaware. He would have sensed my coming up alongside him. Yeah. And typically people face the front and are polite till you come down. But in this instance, everyone is turned and looking back up where I'm coming down the side steps.
Yeah.
And I thought, here's this bald head, perfect.
It's
Yeah,
perfect.
yes, I will.
Yeah.
And maybe the joyologist could get away with it too.
Yes. Yeah. The perfect way to enter, really.
Yeah. But one of the, I see a bit of a distinction between having a sense of humour and a
Mhm.
sense for humour. What do you think?
Huh. I haven't really thought about that distinction, so I'm curious to know what your distinction is. I'd be curious because I haven't really.
Um, my father was a very funny man, and I became aware at the age of 17, but wasn't totally aware till much later. But much later, saw my innate capacity to be good-humoured and to find opportunities where I could implement my mischief as a nurse,
Okay. Right.
um, without jeopardising anybody's safety.
Right.
Um, and see, when I say a sense for it, it's about seeing where it might or could be. And I think improv acting has probably made that even sharper for me because it's removed the filter a bit and
Yeah.
I'm more free in the moment.
Sure.
But my mind's a bit like a pinball machine. There's lights flashing and you know, little flippers going, and there's a happening place up there. And so even walking down the lolly aisle in the supermarket, I get ideas about things I could put in a newsletter, for example, or even how to solve problems. I remember once a customer was to have received something and it hadn't arrived on the day. So I went, hand delivered it the next day with an apology. And I'm trying to think what I took now. I took with me 2 Moro bars. I don't know if you have Moro bars over there. Moro, chocolate bars, you know, like anything that's on the shelf. And so I took 2 Moro bars and I said to him with great emphasis, I bet you thought tomorrow, which never done, right, which defused it because he'd been a bit antsy on the phone. So it broke that.
Sure.
He loved the joke and he was cool. So it can defray things, and I just have,
So
I can see what something could be beyond what it's meant to be.
so in that way, you're just that would be the sense for humor, like you know when to use humor to diffuse a situation, or when it's appropriate, or how to use it effectively. It's a conscious choice for you, or it's a tool in a way for building trust, perhaps, or getting deeper connections to people. Whereas the sense of humor, then I'm just sort of reflecting back and trying to understand your sense of it, would be being able to perceive when humor is happening, to laugh at it or not, appropriately or not, and that you're able to go with the humor as it's happening. You're not necessarily creating the humor or using it as a tool, but you have enough sense to know when something's funny.
Yeah, you know, we have lots of intelligences, but we really honour sport and academia, but we don't honour some of the others like interpersonal, intrapersonal, spiritual, emotional.
Right.
They don't get a look in by comparison. And one of my forays at the moment, I'd like to write the book, Humour Intelligence. And part of this pathway with the program is to, you know, to be asking the question, is humour intelligent?
Well, I think to understand humor, to know humor, to be appropriate with humor, there is a level of intelligence that goes with that. Now, is that innate? Is it sort of like emotions? Or one's humor, I guess, if we were relating to emotional intelligence, we're all emotional.
Yes.
Now, what makes it what makes emotional intelligence emotional intelligence? It's our ability to understand and work with those emotions so that they don't overtake us or don't run our lives, like anger management or road rage, those things that are happening out there when you're just overcome with the emotion. Now, I suppose if we were going to use that as an example of humor intelligence as a parallel, then intelligence would mean taking what you know about your own sort of apparatus of humor. When is it appropriate to be humorous or not humorous? How do you use it? Because some people can be really, really not smart about their
Yes.
they can be really inappropriate. And I think the way that you were describing it in terms of humor as a tool, I mean, you have to understand human dynamics. You have to understand, you have to be able to read a person. You have to be able to read a room. You have to be able to, and I'm not sure that's necessarily derived from our sense of humor more than as it is derived, and this is just me off the top of my head here, it's derived more from our understanding of human interaction, human psychology, human beings in general, and what makes us tick, and the importance of humor and how humor serves our humanity. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know that there's a lot of people out there that work in that way. I think you are one of the few that actually, I mean, comedians, obviously, that is their work. They make people laugh specifically. But I was thinking about that too. I mean, some comedians are offensive, and they make a living at that. And to me, that's troubling, because they are encouraging a certain mean-spirited component of that group of people, or that sort of tribe, if you will. And to me, that's not an intelligent way to use humor, or a mean-spirited way to use humor. And I mean, Don Rickles, the old Don Rickles comes to mind in some ways. As a kid, I just didn't like him. I didn't like his humor. He seemed mean. He seemed like, and I haven't watched him as an adult, but I just remember that as a kid, he just seemed angry, and I didn't understand why people were laughing at him. He just wrong.
For 10 years in New Zealand, I presented a stress, humour and health program at Auckland University. And, in order to participate there, you need a certain academic rigour. Yeah. And there wasn't a lot of reference material when I initially made my submission. So I did a lot of work in just exploring, mainly with improv performers, but with other people in comedy, positive psychology, exploring the different humour types and styles, and then the subsets within that. Right. And that has served me so well over the years, because you can, when it shows up, you can see it, right, and recognise it, do something or not, your choice about how you respond. But it just so enhanced my awareness. And it's the same, I think, when you understand, we understand our full emotional range, right, and then know we are at choice then, if we appreciate, so anger's present, what am I going to do with that? Then, we've got a much more finely tuned approach to life. And where, I recently worked with someone, and he threw a lot of grenades, blowing up stuff in other people's worlds. And, you know, it's like, you got to stop throwing the grenades, you know?
Yeah.
Just come back to, you got to find a different place. And, you know, so it taught me to be an observer and not a judger.
Right.
Understanding the deeper aspects of it.
And I think that is so critical for building trust too. And what's lacking. You know, we spend so much time judging others. You know, I think we can't help to judge, but it's what we do with that judgment. Does it have an edge to it? Does it have an edge of I'm better than you because of this that you're presenting? Or is it, my God, I have compassion for you because you're human and you have this thing. And I can see even that this thing is creating some issues for you in your life that are difficult for you. And I might even see myself in that, you know. I think I even learned this from Sally Anderson, you know, if I'm judging you with one finger, I've got three fingers pointing back at me. And we're always looking to the outside to project what we don't like about ourselves. And I think there's that, I really do believe that notion that a lot of people really aren't aware that when they're judging, they really are, have some unsettled business in themselves.
Yeah.
And the trigger. This is the trigger.
So the there've been a few times in my life, I'm trying to think of one, when I've endeavoured to use humour and it's fallen flat. The best I can think of at the moment is the Wade Jackson in New Zealand was my improv teacher. And one time I was sitting in the audience at one of his performances and they're taking information from the audience about what the next production is going to be. And this woman offers something and he said, "Thank you, madam." And he said, "What's your name?" And she said, "Helen." And immediately he said, "Correct." Look, I killed myself laughing. I couldn't stop laughing. And I was on my own because no one else got it.
It's funny. I understand. It's funny.
It's like, really?
Nobody else see this?
Yeah, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a certain courage in continuing to laugh if you need to.
I agree. And I find myself in that situation.
You know, no one else is doing it, I better shut down, you know? Because that's part of our self-expression. And Wade paused actually and folded his arms and just stared at me until I settled. It's all part of the game, you know?
Yeah.
Have you had times where you've used humor and it hasn't worked?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that, what you just said. I mean, I don't remember specific moments, but I do know that I can be the only one laughing in a room at something that's happened, and I'm loud with my laugh, and nobody else finds it funny. And then I'm like, oh shit, I'm really standing out here. Or sometimes in a work situation, sometimes it's just everybody's taking things just too seriously. It's just, this room is too heavy right now. And I'll just throw something out, like, it may be inappropriate, but it's my attempt to, and it just falls flat. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess I better be good now. I'll be good now. You know, that's sort of like, this, you know, all right. You know, I guess we're not going to have any fun today. We're just going to be sitting here.
And, you know, when I first started doing this, 2001, I started because I believe humour in, humour out. You know, if you're not taking any in, then you're not going to be resourced. And it doesn't mean you have to tell a lot of jokes, but you need to have a lot of it in your periphery in order to be finding some in yourself. And I loved this little cartoon. I'll include it on the end of the video, actually, that I saw the other day. 2 German Shepherd dogs, both walking, carrying a really long stick in their mouth. And someone has labelled the photo as branch manager and deputy branch manager. Hilarious, you know. So being able to find the fun, you know, children do it so well, you know. Up until about the age of 7, there is this huge playful dynamic, and it's present all the time. My grandson's 5, and he'll be sitting doing something and he'll be giggling to himself, and it's like, well, I've not seen anything, but there's something going on, you know. Yesterday we were drawing with our eyes closed, and he just thought it was hilarious. Killed himself laughing. Laughed and laughed and laughed, and it's like, yes, you know, the absurdity of things, which was what was coming up in the illustrations. Has there been a time when you laughed so much that you cried?
Yes, I'm sure, and I'm not able to think of one. You know, sometimes I remember as a teenager watching Blazing Saddles. I think that scene where they're sitting around the campfire and they start farting, and it was so to me, I just and other times where those moments where something happens and everybody starts laughing, and then you can't stop laughing, and then the littlest thing sets you off, and then that becomes a 5-minute laughter of just, and then you just, ridiculous. We don't even know what we're laughing at anymore. But there is something cathartic about it too. I think there's that need to just let all that energy have it say and express itself, and even if there's no specific reason toward the end of that laughter, it's just sort of like, I guess we needed that, you know.
In 1995, Dr. Madan Kataria in Mumbai created laughter yoga, and however many years on it is now from that period, has created, I think it's well over 3,000 laughter clubs around the world. And, you know, I really get it. It's like a significant message of our times that so many are emotionally flatlining that somebody had to think of, you know, let's get some Clayton's laughter going, the fun you're having when you're not having fun. And a lot of the learning that's come through that, one of the pieces is that the mechanics of a laugh are exactly the same for everybody. So, you know, a chuckle, a giggle, a full-blown laugh, you know, a really long laugh, the mechanics for the creation of, even though we've all got our unique sound that we make, but the mechanics are the same. And I just found that incredible. And there's a lot of research happening now to look at a colleague here in Melbourne is doing some research, just completed one study a while back in a renal unit where people are waiting for kidney transplants, and also some other cancer work happening to look at the effects of laughter, the creation of, you know, raising oxytocin, endorphins, creating that feel-good effect, the influence that has on all the stress hormones. And that's kind of one part for its effect on our physiology. But even, I was reading about Judith Glaser recently. She talks about conversational intelligence, and one of the things she said was, every time you say how are you, you unleash or the frontal cortex just opens up and pours oxytocin.
Huh.
And she demonstrated this. Her husband's a scientist, so how handy is that? And she's able to demonstrate just, what exactly happens. And I was just blown away, and I thought, all those 16 years I was nursing, 16 years, day after day, hour after hour, I'd be at someone's bedside, touching their shoulder, how you feeling? And look at what I was doing, but unaware of at the time. So being good-humoured that's the essence, and it's not necessarily about laughing your head off at something. It's about getting into that heart-spaced feeling.
Yeah, and there's a corollary, I think, with the sense of gratitude. There's an opening of the heart, an opening of the goodness of things, or the pleasure of things. There's a pleasure in it, and if you can emotionally, like with gratitude, if you can really step into the emotion, the feeling of what that is. Like every morning, my cats literally greet me, and I am immediately smiling. I'm talking to them. I'm engaging, and it's this. Oh, hey, Lucy. Hi, Lucy. Oh, Lucy's in here. I've got a neighbor dog. So let me just, she just came in. Let me just let her out. Hold on.
No, she's okay. She's okay.
Yeah, baby. No worries. I love Lucy. Lucy loves me. She comes and says hi. But speaking of, she knew that I was talking about my cats, so she wanted some love. But that sense of joy that comes from the smile, so I think that's the corollary too. When we laugh, we're smiling, and there's something about that physiology that changes us, that opens us to those like endorphins or whatever that start to happen. Yeah. And obviously we need it. Otherwise, why would we do it? Why do our bodies do it? Right? Yes. Something necessary in it for us.
Yeah. The other version of our smile is when we bare our teeth in order to attack.
Yeah.
But let's not go there. Mark Piatelli, Renaissance man, that's how I always think of you. Thank you so much. Have enjoyed all that you've had to say today. Really appreciate it, and look forward to communing with you again very soon.
Thanks, Pat. Keep up the good work. Really good stuff.